So, I don't think I made a video about this before. And I don't know if even any people heard about this before. But of course, as this video is talking about, and as a lot of us are wondering, as pretty much I am too, which car was faster? Dom's Charger or Brian's Supra? Now, from what he's saying, that when they did the first initial preview of this car, when Dom talks about his dad's car, the motor that was in it never ran. In other words, the motor was in there that was not used when they did this race. Okay, so after they got the car out of the garage and started driving it, they never really drove it on that motor. They took out that engine and put a different engine in it. So we're going to check and see, which I didn't know, which one would have won, because they're going to check the stats on it now. So let's do this.
Assuming the car used a standard 3-speed automatic transmission that was presumably built to handle the power, we do know that the car that we had a drag race suspension and drag slicks. For those of you who don't know, drag slicks are an important component when drag racing. When you have a sticky tire, you're able to accelerate. When you're spinning the tires, you're not moving forward. You are standing still.
This is impossible.
So you have to have sticky tires. This is why drag racers use slicks or a low tread wear tire. The lower the tread wear, the stickier the tire. And that was something that the Charger had. The Supra, on the other hand, was another story. It had a stock block 2JZ, a T66 turbo, which is rated for about 700 rear wheel horsepower.
Okay.
This particular car in this...
We'll take a minute to look at this. So Hero Charger, 900 horsepower on alcohol on a 526 Hemi, non-supercharged, apparently. Or the car as promoted on the screen. Oh, well then maybe it is. I don't know. I can't keep up with this shit. 3-speed automatic drag racing slicks and drag race suspension and drag slicks. The Supra, stock block 2JZ, T66 turbo, 600. That's all that car made? 676 wheel horsepower at without NOS, I guess. Okay, I guess that makes sense. But still, you can get almost 1,500 horsepower out of these. I guess on turbo alone. Let me know, guys. Without NOS. With NOS is... Oh, no, it's not. Oh, yeah, 750. But still, that's it? 700. Damn, they hadn't modded that one quite like I thought they did. I thought it was at least up in the 1,100 horsepower range. So this one has... Oh, they don't... Oh, 900 horsepower. This has 750 horsepower. So if that's correct, then this should have won. I would think. With the instant acceleration. And this has the build boost, and you can't power brake it necessarily because it's stick shift. So, and those are the tires on it. I thought it had a whole lot more horsepower than that. Okay. So let's go.
Condition of tune, this type of tune using the devices we had back then, which included things like the HKS VPC and GCC. Those were really band-aid solutions, but the car reasonably makes 675 horsepower. My dyno on it was about 569 or 574 horsepower, depending on which dyno you believe. With an 150 wet shot of nitrous, you could say that the car made, realistically, maybe 750 in the best case scenario. But the car weighed 3,900 pounds and had road race suspension. It also had Yokohama 285/30/19 tires. And anyone who knows anything about cars knows that a street tire is not a good drag race tire in most considerations.
True.
Certainly not a low-profile 19-inch tire with a 240 tread wear. That was not an optimum setup. Yet that's the way the car was equipped in that scene. So what would have happened? If you go online, you can look up an ET calculator, a lapse time calculator. You can plug in the data and get a reasonable estimation of what your car would run. They're not 100% accurate, but they're pretty darn close. So let's take a look at those stats. Assuming the Hero Charger weighed 3,600 pounds and made 900 horsepower, its estimated ET would have been somewhere in the range of 9.22 seconds at 144 miles per hour. And that's not outlandish. That's a very reasonable expectation. We'll bump it down and say, well, maybe the guy's not a great driver, but forget all that. In an ideal scenario, the car is still a mid-9-second car at 140 miles an hour. Let's take a look, conversely, at the Supra. The Supra weighed 3,950 pounds. had a full roll cage and an audio video system. It had heavy street seats and all that other stuff, while the Charger, of course, was stripped out. Nevertheless, it weighed 3950. Best case scenario, it made 675 without nitrous and 800 with nitrous. Plug that into an ET calculator, you come up with 9.7 at 137 miles an hour. Case closed. Supra loses. End of story. That's probably not what you wanted to hear, but it gets even worse. The fact of the matter is, back in that time, in the early 2000s, Supra tuners like Ryan Woon and other experts who had T66s on their Supras were not getting anywhere near that time. They were running about 1060s at 136 miles an hour. In fact, if you do a YouTube search for Ryan Woon T66 Supra, you'll find a video of that actual run. So it just wasn't a good matchup. A car on street tires like my Supra would not really be able to run with that Charger in any scenario. Even with slicks, it would have been a tough race without proper tuning and bigger fuel system in a big way. You'd have to have bigger pumps, bigger injectors, and standalone system, and it'd be a closer race. When I was running the Naira event, we had people like R.R. Arslanian that were running 980s at 140 miles an hour, but those were essentially drag cars. They had some of the weight, or most of the weight, stripped out, but they were still street chassis cars. So, sorry folks, the Charger would have won that race. But there's more to the discussion. The discussion really needs to talk about what cars were actually used that day. My Supra, as I said, made about 570 horsepower, the way it sat on that set on that day. The Chargers that we used, we had a total of 5 Chargers, and they all used different V8s. Some of them used 318, I think a couple had the 383s. If you take a look at the available engines for the Dodge Charger, you'll see what was available that year, and you can go online, of course, and take a look at their specs. Available V8 engines for the 69 Charger included several options: the 318 2-barrel, the 383 2-barrel, a 383 with the 4-barrel, a 426 with 2 4-barrels, a 440 with a single 4-barrel, and a 440 with 3 2-barrel carburetors. There were plenty of different options available for that car, but of course, any car that we would have used as a movie car would have not have been a souped-up, modified car with heads and cams and increased compression and all that. It would have been a junkyard rescue that was barely running and it just needed to get down the street. And so I believe most of those cars were 318s. Of course, those cars have since disappeared. There's so many different copies and replicas, it's difficult to discern exactly what car was used in what scene. I know the crashed Charger has resurfaced, and that car's floating around, so who knows what engine's in that now. I don't have that information. Bottom line is, that particular scene, it doesn't really matter which car won, because the producers had already predetermined which car was going to win. The answer is neither of them. Neither of them could win, because Paul was the hero and Vin was the anti-hero, so they had to be equally matched. And if you really want to split hairs and slow down the video, you'll see that the Supra appears to touch the ground first after it lands by a millisecond, and the Supra is the Charger is right next to it. So who won? You could go frame by frame and say the Supra won by a nose.
And trust me, I've been doing it, and I actually do think the Supra did get it, because the Supra, it looked like it got to that first thing in the train track by the front clip, barely. Now, had it been modded more like I thought, well, it is still a 10-second car though. But seeing all these videos that I see online, which made me even more respect the Supra, or at least so I thought, it's the fact that this Supra I thought would have made at least 1,000 horsepower, at least 800. Well, he did say 800 to 1,000 horsepower, okay? With that, plus, well, I guess more towards 1,000 though. But that plus the, the big turbos it's got on it, and I guess that car is heavier. But I don't know. I would think. I mean, I'm not gonna say the Charger. Y'all know I hate Dodge though, but it still would have been close, I guess. But I don't know. So the Charger won that one, which is typical anyway, because that's a drag car, and that one on its current setup wasn't set up for drag racing. But in the quarter mile, I guess on that setup, it ran a 9 something. So Dom still got a 10-second car, street car. Hopefully I get that. Anyway, so that's what's going on with that. So just thought I'd put that out there.